Hi there. Thanks for joining me today. Sorry for starting a bit late. We had some technical difficulties, so I'm glad you guys can join. Let me just start my screen. Okay, so today we'll be discussing Express Entry, specifically Canadian Experience category, the federal skilled worker applications, and a little bit about the federal skilled trades, because there seemed to be a bit of a confusion between the federal skilled worker and the federal skilled trade. So we'll touch base on that as well. But first, let me introduce myself. If you don't know already, my name is Shabna Makrami. I'm the managing partner at Akrami & Associates, and I will be conducting today's session about Express Entry. So what is Express Entry? Express Entry is an application that applicants can submit through the economic stream. An economic stream ultimately means that you as the applicant, you have some skill sets where you believe you have enough points to be eligible to come to Canada based on age, education, language, and work experience. There's other criterias that we'll quickly touch base on, but those are the four big ones. So again, your age, your educational level, your work experience, and obviously if you have employment in Canada. Those are the criterias that give you the most eligibility points. I know that there's a lot of questions with regards to when is this category going to open up? And that's a good question because it's been closed for some time. COVID caused a little dent in this and a lot of applications were delayed. So it is in my belief that because of this delay, Citizenship Immigration Canada decided to lock it and reopen this route this coming July. They have not announced exactly when it's going to be opened in July, but we're crossing our fingers and hoping that it'll be early July. Now, what that means is when it opens up, all the applicants that are in a pool, and we'll go over what that means because it's written on CIC's website, this word pool, will get an invite so long as you meet that number, the CRS code or the draw. So ultimately, you should, if you believe you are eligible for this, you should put your name into the pool and wait for the draw. So the applications are open. It's not that you cannot submit an application. You can submit an express entry application, put your name in the pool, and hopefully the first draw will be in July as promised. I wouldn't be surprised if they say July and then it opens up in August. I mean, that happens, but let's be hopeful and hopefully it will open up in July as they announced. So Express Entry, as stated, is based on an evaluation of your credentials, your education, your work experience, and based on that, you get a draw, or you get a certain amount of points. So if we look at the exact points, bear with me. It's called the comprehensive ranking system. So it's based off of 1,200 points. I don't think ever any applicant of mine has scored 1,200, but you are evaluated or ranked based on 1,200 points. If we look at last year's draws, we're at about 460 points. So I always tell my clients that if you are at 450 plus points, you have a very good chance of getting an invite. Not to say that low invites are not given, but 450 plus is the magical number that I look for when I evaluate my clients. So looking at the comprehensive ranking system criteria, so level of education, you get some points, official language proficiency, as we discussed. There's obviously something called skills transferability factor, which means they kind of combine a few things, which is language and your degree, for example, or if you have work experience and a degree, you can get points. Depending on what you're looking at applying, whether it's CC or FSW, they evaluate your foreign and or your Canadian experience. So that leads me to the next one, which is what is CC? Let's touch base on that first, and then we can talk about what is FSW. So CEC stands for Canadian Experience Class, and it's exactly that. It is for applicants who have Canadian experience. And the evaluation is a minimum of 1 year full-time, and part-time can, so long as it's under like, let's say, 2 part-time positions that equate to a full-time position. That is also accepted. So for CC, it's 1 year of work experience in the last 3 years, and they look at NOC A, B, or O. So if you're in a position of a NOC C or D, then you may be eligible under a different category, but you will not be eligible under Canadian Experience Class. One common question I do get is, what if I'm self-employed and I've been working at least 1 year in Canada? Can I add that as my work experience? And the answer is no. Self-employed does not count. There is a little bit of a, I guess, like an exception, if you will, for some IT employees or employers, I should say, as well as doctors, like medical professions. Sometimes the way you're being paid is through your company, or you have your own company registered, but technically you're an employee. It's how they pay you that's a bit different. So let's say, for example, you're a doctor, a medical practitioner. The government of Canada will pay you through your business registration. The way to really simplify it is, who controls your job? Is it you, or is it someone else? Is it your actual employer? So if you are in charge of your hours, in charge of your clients, in charge of this, in charge of everything, whether you want to work or not work, in charge of coming to the office or not, then most likely you'll fall under the definition of self-employed, and therefore you will not be eligible for CC. However, if your mode of payment is through a company that you've registered, or an HST number that you registered, but everything that you do is kind of controlled by your superior, your boss, then most likely you can argue that you are an employee. It's just the mode of payment is a bit different. If you have questions about this, if that pertains to you, you can always reach out to me, and I can definitely clarify whether you fall under the employee or employer definition. So again, to just reiterate, CEC is 1 year in the last 3 years, and then you will be evaluated. You will be evaluated based on the criteria I mentioned. FSW stands for Federal Skilled Worker, and that's federal skilled worker, ultimately in just simple English, is foreign work experience. So not Canadian experience, but experience that you have accumulated based on work you've done outside of Canada. And that is 1 year in the last 10 years. So it's not like the CC where it's only 3. This one is 10. The good thing about FSW is that self-employment can count. So unlike the CEC, the FSW, whether you were an employee or an employer, it will count towards your work experience. Nonetheless, the NOCs A still remains the same, NOC A, B, or O. There is a funny situation with FSW that a lot of clients get confused with. And FSW also has a point system, very similar to the express entry, but that's where you are supposed to score 67 out of 100. And it's a criteria and evaluation that is kind of taking, it was before express entry. That point system still stands. So not only do you have to meet the pool requirement based on the draw. So hypothetically, in July, when there is a draw and majority of the applicants were 450 plus, those applicants would get a draw, but you also have to meet the 67 points out of 100, which is age, education, language, work experience. So based on a different point system to even upload and submit a request for a draw under FSW. So those 2 points still stand. One is to be the 450. I'm just throwing that number as a good number. That's based on you creating your profile and having a good application for immigration then to pull you out. So I'm just going to elaborate on that based on the definition of the pool. Think of a pool as a bucket. Every person can submit an application through express entry, so long as they meet the absolute bare minimum requirements, which is having 1 year experience for CC inside Canada and FSW outside of Canada. And then there's an IELTS requirement based on, depending on which application you're applying for. That you can apply for that, your friend can apply for that, etc. However, when you put yourself into this pool, this bucket, they take the average of that, pool. So let's say hypothetically there's 1,000 people in this pool. They take the average of the score, and that will be the draw. So hypothetically, you score 450, somebody else scores 300, another person scores 200, etc., etc. They take the average of that pool and then come up with a draw. That's the number, magical number of 450 gives you a good indication based on past experience that you most likely will get an invite under the express entry category. However, for FSW, there is a point system where you're supposed to score 67 out of 100 as well. And again, same thing, age, education, language, work experience, etc. is evaluated. So that's the FSW. For the federal skilled trades, it's exactly what it stands for. This is for people with special trades. And they let's say an electrician is considered a special trade. Their requirements are actually substantially different than the federal skilled worker. There hasn't been any draws done lately. There's not, at my practice, there's not a high demand for it, but I will still talk about it briefly. Minimum requirements is, again, same thing, IELTS. There's a benchmark that you require. There's also 2 years of work experience that you require in this particular trade within the last 5 years before you submit. So it's 2 years within the 5-year period when you apply for this application. Part-time work will be accepted so long as it's equivalent to a full-time position, as similar to the CC and the FSW. Unpaid work or volunteer work is obviously not accepted, such as internship, should be full-time or part-time paid work. You also need a valid job offer of full-time for a total period of at least 1 year to qualify for federal skilled trades. Or if you don't have a job, a certification of qualification issued by the province. So like a seal that you need, like certain electricians, certain professions can get a seal. You do a test, you get a seal, and so that can replace a valid job. So that's the work experience. There is a few knocks that is accepted. So not all knocks are accepted, which means not all trades are accepted. Group 72, 73, 82, 92, the cooks and chefs and butchers and bakers are accepted. So again, there's a few professions considered as special trades. They're accepted and a few are not. If you're worried about if yours is or is not, you can contact me and we can evaluate your specific job duties and we can see if you qualify under the federal skilled trades. Again, not a lot of my my clients qualify under this category, so I'll just kind of skim through it. There is an educational requirement. There's no educational requirement, so a high school certification will suffice. But if you do have education, I highly recommend that you still get it assessed because you do get points for it. And it's nice to show that you have an education in the field as well. Language is benchmark 5 for speaking and listening and 4 for reading and writing. So it is much lower than for a CC and FSW. Those two, CC and FSW, is higher skilled, and this one, because it's special trades, the language requirements are a little bit less. Like an electrician doesn't speak a lot, they are more hands-on technical work, so therefore the IELTS requirement is different. And so those are the main requirements for FST. Um, as far as legal fees are concerned, again, this one, it really is, because clients ask me that, what about your fees? It's client by client. It depends on your situation. It depends on if you're coming with your family, how many family members. But and on average, any law firm, and I think that mine included, for any PR application, you should be expecting somewhere in the 5,000 range. Could be a little bit less, could be a little bit more, but this is a PR application, and PR application tend to be ranging in that, um, around the 5,000 range. The good thing is, because it's a two-step process, first you submit an express entry application, you put your name into the pool, and should you get an invite, then you go to the next stage, which is submit. So the first stage is to create your profile, and that's by answering a bunch of questions about your age, education, language, etc. There's no documentation required in the first stage. However, should you get a draw, should you get an invite, then um, you are then required to prove everything that you put in stage one, and that's where you put, you have to put your birth certificate, your police clearances, all of these documents would need to be uploaded. So a lot of clients tend to put less emphasis on the first stage, which is to create your profile, because they think it's easy. I personally think it's the opposite. If you do a good job by answering all the questions properly in stage one, then once you get the draw in stage two, it should be relatively smoother, if you will. A lot of times clients try to submit their application first. They put themselves into the pool, and then they contact me and say, okay, Shab, I want you to finish it because I received an invite. When I do that, I have no issues. However, I do have to make sure that the first, when you put your name into the pool prior to getting the draw, all of that information is accurate, and that there's no discrepancies. If there is, chances are I'm going to tell you that unfortunately we got to decline the invite and we got to restart. So stage one of creating your profile is super, super important, and it has to be accurate. There are a few exceptions to the rule. So for example, if you think of it in a nutshell, if you put something in your profile that you received a point and now you want to change it, chances are I'm going to say we're going to decline the invite and we got to restart. If you put something in your profile that was a mistake, but it didn't really necessarily change your points, you didn't get points for it, then chances are I'm going to say we can continue and just edit the profile. If you submit an application, you get an invite, and throughout that process of your application for PR, your marital status changes, we should update immigration, obviously, because again, your points can change based on your marital status. So should a change happen from the date that you created your profile to the date of you actually becoming permanent residents, become landed, there are times where we have to inform immigration. So if that is your situation, contact me and I can see if we need to amend it. Other than that, I highly encourage everyone to create their profile, put your name into the pool, and let's all be hopeful and wait for the next draw in July. So I'll just give it a moment and see if there's any questions that I can address. So I'll just give it a few minutes. Okay, so I'm seeing here messages that I think people have gotten their questions answered. So thankfully, there's no pending questions. If there is, my contact details is included here. I look forward to working with all of you and hearing back from you. Thank you very much, and until next time.